My beloved child. Something happened last night that you were never meant to force, chase, or uncover on your own, and yet the truth found a way to rise to the surface. While you were focused on your own journey, while your attention was somewhere else entirely, a conversation unfolded that carried your name into a room you could not see. No, this was not a coincidence. There are moments when hidden emotions become too heavy to remain hidden. There are moments when a heart grows tired of pretending. And there are moments when what has been carefully guarded begins to spill out in ways nobody expected. Last night was one of those moments. Your person has been carrying feelings deeper than they have allowed others to believe. For a long time, they convinced themselves they could manage these emotions quietly. They believed they could keep everything under control, keep their expression neutral, keep their heart protected. But emotions do not disappear simply because they are ignored. And what happened next surprised even them. A simple discussion became something more. An ordinary moment became a doorway. A question was asked. Then another. And before they realized what was happening, pieces of their truth began escaping through words they never intended to say aloud. Those listening noticed something immediately. There was a change in their voice. A hesitation. A softness. A look that appeared only when your name entered the conversation. The room felt it. Even if nobody fully understood it at first. Because genuine feelings have a strange energy. They reveal themselves long before a person is ready to admit them. Your person tried to redirect the conversation. They attempted to act casual. They tried to make everything seem insignificant. Yet the more they spoke, the more obvious it became that something powerful was hiding beneath the surface. What they thought they were concealing was becoming visible to everyone around them. And do you know what startled them the most? It was not the questions. It was not the attention. It was realizing how much emotion still exists within them when it comes to you. Because some feelings refuse to fade. No matter how much time passes. No matter how many distractions appear. No matter how hard someone tries to move forward without addressing what remains unresolved. The heart remembers. The soul remembers. And last night, those memories rose unexpectedly. Someone noticed. Someone listened carefully. Someone saw through the mask your person has been wearing. The response they received was not judgment. It was understanding. And that changed everything. For the first time in a while, your person felt something they have not felt often. Permission. Permission to stop pretending. Permission to acknowledge what they have been fighting within themselves. Permission to consider a possibility they have been afraid to face. But this is where the story becomes even more important. Because the revelation was not merely about feelings. It was about realization. A realization that arrived suddenly. A realization that has been growing quietly for longer than they understood. And once this realization appeared, it became impossible to ignore. The people around them may have heard words. But your person felt something far deeper. They felt the weight of truth. And truth has a way of changing the direction of someone's future. Right now, they are replaying parts of that conversation in their mind. They are remembering what was said. What was noticed? What could no longer be denied? A question keeps echoing inside them. A question they are struggling to answer honestly. Because if they answer it truthfully, it may require them to make a decision they have been postponing for far too long. And that question is leading them toward a moment that neither of you expected. A moment that began forming the very second those hidden feelings were revealed in front of everyone last night. What happens next depends on whether they are finally ready to stop running from what their heart has been trying to tell them all along. And the signs suggest that answer may arrive sooner than anyone realizes. A strange silence followed after everything was said. Not the kind of silence created by an empty room. The kind of silence that appears when a truth has landed so deeply that nobody knows what to say next. Your person carried that silence with them long after the conversation ended. They smiled when necessary. They answered questions when they had to. They continued moving through the night as though everything was normal. But inside, nothing felt normal anymore. Because once a hidden feeling is exposed, even partially, the heart cannot return to pretending it was never there. Something had shifted. And your person knew it. As the hours passed, they found themselves revisiting moments connected to you. Not just recent memories. Older ones too. The kind of memories people usually keep locked away because they carry too much emotion. Small details resurfaced. A conversation. A glance. A message. A moment they once dismissed as insignificant. Suddenly those memories looked different. Suddenly they carried meaning. And this realization stirred emotions your person has been trying very hard to keep under control. You see, there is a difference between missing someone and understanding their value. Many people experience the first. Far fewer experience the second. Last night brought your person closer to understanding the second. That is why their thoughts have become so difficult to escape. Every attempt to distract themselves seems to lead back to the same place. Back to the same question. Back to the same person. Back to you. What makes this even more significant is that they are beginning to recognize something they previously avoided acknowledging. The connection they feel is not disappearing. In fact, the more they try to examine it honestly, the stronger it appears. This realization is both comforting and frightening for them. Comforting because it reveals what their heart truly wants. Frightening because truth often demands courage. And courage is exactly what your person has been struggling with. Not because they do not care. Not because the feelings are absent. But because genuine emotions create vulnerability. When someone truly matters, the possibility of rejection feels larger. The possibility of misunderstanding feels heavier. The possibility of change feels overwhelming. Yet despite these fears, something unexpected is happening. The walls they built around themselves are beginning to crack. Slowly. Quietly. Almost invisibly. But the cracks are there. And through those cracks, honesty is finding a way in. There is a reason this message is reaching you now. There is a reason these events are unfolding in this particular season. Some chapters cannot begin until hidden emotions are brought into the light. Some conversations cannot happen until denial loses its power. And some hearts cannot move forward until they stop arguing with what they already know. Your person is approaching that crossroads. A place where continuing to hide feels harder than speaking the truth. A place where silence is becoming more exhausting than honesty. They may not have all the answers yet. They may still be sorting through emotions they do not fully understand. But one thing is becoming impossible for them to ignore. The feelings revealed last night were not temporary. They were not accidental. They were not created by a passing mood. They came from somewhere much deeper. And now that others have seen glimpses of that truth, your person can no longer convince themselves that it means nothing. The realization keeps growing. It follows them into quiet moments. It appears when they least expect it. It returns every time they try to focus on something else. And there is one particular realization emerging above all the others. A realization that could change the direction of everything. Because your person is beginning to understand that the greatest risk may not be expressing their feelings. The greatest risk may be staying silent and wondering forever what might have happened if they had finally spoken from the heart. And very soon, a situation is going to appear that gives them an opportunity they did not expect. An opportunity that may reveal whether they are truly ready to stop hiding what everyone else is already starting to see. What makes this next chapter so remarkable is that it will not arrive with loud announcements or dramatic warnings. It will begin with something that seems ordinary. A moment. A conversation. A simple opportunity. And yet beneath the surface, far more will be happening than anyone realizes. Your person is standing closer to a breakthrough than they understand. Not because everything is suddenly perfect. Not because all uncertainty has disappeared. But because the struggle inside them is reaching a point where it can no longer remain unresolved. For so long, they have been balancing between what they feel and what they allow themselves to admit. One side of their heart has been speaking clearly. The other side has been creating excuses. Perhaps the timing is wrong. Perhaps it is safer to stay quiet. Perhaps these feelings will eventually fade. But each passing day has made those excuses weaker. And the truth stronger. That is what last night revealed. Not only to the people around them, but to your person as well. Sometimes people spend months searching for answers they already possess. They ask others for guidance. They seek signs. They wait for certainty. Yet deep down, they already know what their heart has been saying all along. Your person is beginning to recognize that reality. And that recognition is changing the way they see you. There is something they have been noticing recently. Something subtle. Something they rarely admit even to themselves. When they think about the future, your presence keeps appearing within it. Not because they are forcing those thoughts. Not because they are trying to create a fantasy. But because certain connections naturally find their way into a person's vision of tomorrow. No matter how hard they try to focus elsewhere. No matter how many distractions surround them. The image remains. And that image is asking questions they can no longer avoid. What if these feelings are real? What if they have been real all along? What if the very thing they have been resisting is the thing they truly desire? These questions are becoming louder. And with each passing day, the answers are becoming more difficult to deny. Yet there is another layer to this story. One that few people know. Your person has been carrying concerns they have never fully expressed. Concerns about timing. Concerns about vulnerability. Concerns about what could happen if they reveal too much. These fears have acted like chains around their heart. Not strong enough to erase their feelings. But strong enough to delay action. For a while, those chains seemed impossible to break. Now they are weakening. Because something powerful happens when hidden emotions are witnessed by others. The illusion of secrecy disappears. The heart realizes it is no longer carrying its burden alone. And once that happens, transformation often begins. Your person may still appear calm on the outside. They may still act as though nothing significant has changed. But beneath that surface, a storm of realization is unfolding. Every memory. Every feeling. Every unanswered question. It is all moving toward a single point. A decision. Not a decision about whether they feel something. That answer is becoming increasingly clear. The decision is about what they will do with those feelings. Will they continue hiding? Will they continue postponing what needs to be faced? Or will they finally allow honesty to guide them forward? That question is becoming impossible to ignore. And there is something else. Someone close to your person has already begun noticing this internal battle. Someone who sees more than they say. Someone who recognizes that your person's emotions run deeper than they admit. The conversation that follows could become more important than anyone expects. Because sometimes a single piece of advice, a single observation, a single moment of clarity can unlock a door that has remained closed for far too long. That door is beginning to open. Very slowly. Very quietly. But it is opening. And as it does, your person is approaching a realization that will challenge everything they thought they understood about their feelings. A realization so undeniable that once it fully arrives, remaining silent may no longer feel like an option at all. And what triggers that realization is already beginning to unfold behind the scenes. There are moments in life when everything appears unchanged on the outside. Yet beneath the surface, an entirely new chapter is quietly being written. This is one of those moments. Your person may still be following their usual routine. They may still be speaking the same words, showing the same expressions, moving through the same environments. But internally, something profound is taking place. The truth that surfaced last night did not disappear when the conversation ended. It followed them. It lingered in their thoughts. It echoed through their quiet moments. And now it is beginning to influence the choices they make. What they are experiencing is difficult to explain. It is the feeling of standing between the familiar and the unknown. The familiar is silence. The familiar is caution. The familiar is keeping emotions hidden behind carefully constructed walls. But the unknown is honesty. The unknown is vulnerability. The unknown is allowing another person to see what has been guarded for so long. That unknown is calling to them. And no matter how much they try to focus elsewhere, they can feel its pull becoming stronger. Something else is happening as well. The way they interpret past events is changing. Memories they once overlooked now seem significant. Details they once ignored now feel meaningful. It is as though they are viewing the story through an entirely different lens. And what they are seeing surprises them. Because the more honestly they reflect, the more evidence they find that their feelings have been present for much longer than they realized. This was never as sudden as it appeared. The signs were there. The emotions were there. The connection was there. What changed was not the feeling itself. What changed was their willingness to acknowledge it. That is why the coming days carry such importance. Your person is approaching a point where reflection becomes action. Where thoughts become decisions. Where emotions begin asking to be expressed instead of merely felt. Yet before that happens, there is one final obstacle standing in the way. Not another person. Not distance. Not circumstances. The obstacle is fear. The fear of uncertainty. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear that comes whenever someone truly cares about the outcome. Many people believe courage means having no fear. But courage has never meant that. True courage is moving forward despite fear. And your person is slowly learning that lesson. The more they examine their heart, the more they realize that avoiding the truth has not protected them. It has only delayed clarity. That realization is becoming impossible to ignore. And as it grows stronger, something unexpected begins to happen. Hope returns. Not loud hope. Not dramatic hope. Quiet hope. The kind that appears when someone starts believing that a different future may actually be possible. The kind that whispers instead of shouts. The kind that changes everything. Because deep within themselves, your person is beginning to imagine what could happen if they stopped holding back. What could happen if they spoke openly? What could happen if they trusted what their heart has been trying to tell them? Those possibilities once felt distant. Now they feel closer. Much closer. And that closeness is creating momentum. Momentum that is pushing them toward a moment they can no longer postpone. A moment that will require honesty. A moment that will require courage. A moment that will reveal whether they are ready to stop hiding behind uncertainty and step into the truth they have been carrying all this time. What makes this especially significant is that the opportunity approaching them is not arriving by accident. Pieces are already falling into place. Conversations are aligning. Thoughts are becoming clearer. The path ahead is beginning to reveal itself. And very soon, your person will find themselves standing in front of a choice that feels impossible to ignore. A choice that may finally reveal what their heart has been trying to say from the very beginning. Not every turning point announces itself when it arrives. Sometimes the most important moments enter quietly, disguised as something ordinary. That is exactly why your person may not immediately recognize what is approaching. At first, it will seem like another day. Another conversation. Another chance encounter. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. And yet beneath that ordinary surface, a powerful shift is taking place. Because the heart can only carry unspoken truth for so long before it begins searching for release. Your person has reached a stage where their emotions are no longer asking to be acknowledged. They are demanding it. Everywhere they turn, reminders seem to appear. A familiar thought. A familiar memory. A familiar feeling that refuses to fade. The more they try to understand why these emotions remain so persistent, the clearer the answer becomes. Some connections leave an imprint. Not because they are perfect. Not because they are easy. But because they touch something genuine within the soul. Your person is beginning to understand that what they feel cannot simply be explained away. And that understanding is changing their perspective. The questions that once created confusion are now creating clarity. The doubts that once felt convincing are losing their power. Slowly, almost without realizing it, they are becoming more honest with themselves. And honesty has a remarkable way of transforming everything. When a person stops running from the truth, they begin seeing possibilities they never noticed before. That is exactly where your person stands now. On the edge of possibility. On the edge of realization. On the edge of a decision that has been waiting much longer than they realize. There is something they have not fully admitted yet. Something they continue circling around in their thoughts. Every time they come close to acknowledging it, fear attempts to pull them back. Yet the realization keeps returning. Again. And again. And again. Because truth is patient. It does not force itself. It simply waits until someone is ready to see it. Your person is getting very close to that moment. Closer than they have ever been before. What once felt uncertain is beginning to feel undeniable. What once felt complicated is beginning to feel simple. Not easy. But simple. The heart wants what it wants. And no amount of overthinking can permanently silence it. That is why the energy around this situation feels different now. There is movement. There is momentum. There is a growing sense that something long delayed is finally preparing to happen. Even your person can feel it. Though they may not fully understand where it is leading. They can sense that remaining exactly where they are is becoming impossible. A choice is approaching. A moment of truth. A crossroads where they will have to decide whether fear deserves the final word, or whether honesty does. And what makes this so significant is that they are no longer the same person they were before that conversation unfolded. The emotions revealed last night changed something inside them. The reflections that followed changed even more. Now they are beginning to see the situation with fresh eyes. Eyes that are less focused on what could go wrong. And more focused on what could finally go right. That shift may seem small. But it is powerful. Because every major transformation begins with a single change in perspective. Your person is experiencing that change right now. And as it continues, another realization is starting to emerge from deep within their heart. A realization connected to timing. A realization connected to purpose. A realization connected to why certain feelings have remained alive despite every attempt to ignore them. When that realization fully arrives, it will answer a question they have been carrying for far too long. And once that answer becomes clear, the next step may feel impossible to avoid. Because the opportunity they have been waiting for is closer than either of you realize. And the signs pointing toward it are becoming stronger with every passing day. What happens when a heart finally stops fighting itself? That is the question your person is being asked right now. Not by the world. Not by the people around them. but by the quiet voice within that has been speaking for much longer than they wanted to admit. For a long time, they believed they could postpone this moment. They believed they could keep moving forward while leaving certain emotions unanswered. They believed that time alone would provide clarity. Yet something unexpected happened. Time did bring clarity. Just not in the way they anticipated. Instead of making their feelings disappear, it revealed their depth. Instead of creating distance, it exposed what remained. Instead of providing an escape, it led them back to the very truth they were trying to avoid. And now that truth stands before them more clearly than ever. The realization growing inside your person is no longer centered on whether their feelings are real. That question is fading into the background. The new question is far more powerful. What happens next? Because every realization eventually reaches a point where action must follow. A person can only replay the same thoughts so many times. They can only revisit the same emotions so many times. Eventually, the heart begins asking for movement. And your person's heart has begun asking. Quietly at first. Then more persistently. Now almost constantly. There is a growing awareness that an opportunity may be approaching. An opportunity to bring clarity where uncertainty has existed. An opportunity to replace assumptions with truth. An opportunity to discover what is possible when honesty takes the place of fear. This awareness has changed the atmosphere around them. You may not see it directly. Others may not notice it immediately. But something inside them is preparing. Preparing for a conversation. Preparing for a decision. Preparing for a step they once believed was impossible. What makes this moment especially meaningful is that your person is starting to understand something many people spend years learning. Fear often promises protection. But sometimes what it actually protects is regret. And that realization has shaken them. Because they are beginning to ask themselves a difficult question. If they stay silent, what might they lose? If they continue waiting, what opportunities might pass by? If they never speak honestly, will they always wonder what could have been? Those questions carry weight. And lately, that weight has become impossible to ignore. The heart wants peace. The soul wants truth. And your person is discovering that neither can be fully found through avoidance. That is why their perspective continues changing. That is why their confidence is slowly growing. That is why the future no longer looks exactly the way it once did. Something new is appearing on the horizon. A possibility. A chance. A moment that feels increasingly real. And whether they realize it or not, they are moving toward it with every passing day. The feelings revealed in front of everyone last night were never the end of the story. They were the beginning. The beginning of honesty. The beginning of understanding. The beginning of a journey that requires courage but offers clarity in return. Right now, your person is closer than ever to accepting what their heart has known all along. Closer than ever to recognizing the significance of this connection. Closer than ever to making a choice that could reshape the path ahead. The truth has already been revealed. The realization has already begun. And now only one thing remains. The moment when what has been hidden inside finally finds the courage to be expressed. When that moment arrives, it may answer questions that have lingered for far longer than either of you expected. And it may reveal that the story unfolding behind the scenes was leading toward this turning point all along.